Free Skaro! Hello, everyone. Welcome to Radio Free Skaro, episode number 995. I am Stephen in Edmonton.
Warren in Edmonton.
And Chris in Edmonton.
Warren's
in Edmonton for the, next 2 or 3 weeks? I can't remember now.
Something like that, yeah. I'm here to help my parents out who are elderly.
They're elderly. They all grow up.
I'm pretty sure we're all getting to elderly ourselves, too.
Well, they're a little further along, so I'm helping them out with household stuff.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, well, and of course, the offshoot of that is me pinning down these two to get
berating
as much in-person recording as possible.
Blackmailing, which involves some reward, which we're getting none of. So
exactly. Yeah. So hey,
Stephen's presence isn't even the reward it once was.
Oh God, was it ever?
That's a fair supposition and also a bit of a stretch.
Was it ever? Yeah, I listen.
I got long arms. I'm okay.
I know that crestfallen look whenever I walk into a room with you two. It's all old news.
Or
to
indeed,
me.
walk into a room.
Yeah, that's true. But hey, we might do some stuff. Not too much out of the ordinary. Just standard recordings that we would have done over Zoom before, but in person this time. So because I know we got a commentary. For instance, we're postponing our Moonbase commentary this week. We'll get to why in a second. But the next commentary after that, which has yet to be chosen, it has been chosen. Obviously, it's been recorded. But we're going to do that one probably in person. So an in-person commentary recording is going to be, you're the benefit of that. Maybe even our next mini-scope. You never know.
Don't get too ambitious here. Come on.
No, probably not. Commentaries are much more fun and easy to do in person. But so that might happen.
Much less prep. Yeah.
Way less prep. So we just watch a thing and talk about it. So anyway, but that is, as I said, Moonbase Part 2 will be next week because this week we have, we have the leader of the Alberta NDP, Naheed Nenshi, on the show. Naheed Nenshi was the mayor of Calgary, like one of Canada's largest cities, for 3 successive terms, a very popular mayor, left that and then was wooed into running for the NDP. And won the leadership race by with 86% of the vote on the first ballot. So, and we'll go toe to toe against the Alberta Conservatives in the next election in 2027. So we may well have the future premier of Alberta on this podcast because he's a massive Doctor Who fan and has been since he was a kid. So
a KSPS kid. So
KSPS. Yep.
Yeah.
So
you
that's
can't see
coming
it in
up.
The recording, obviously, but we all, when he mentioned KSPS, we all raised our fists in solidarity.
He did, yeah. So it's just a nerd out. We just nerd out with a Canadian political titan on this podcast. So the wonders never cease. This thing happened surprisingly quickly and surprisingly easy. So you could tell that perhaps Naheed Nenshi was very excited to talk about Doctor Who on a podcast as opposed to politics or transit lines or anything like that. So yeah, stay tuned for that. It's a fun time. It's a fun time to be had. But anyway, it's that's the main thing on this episode. First off, though, obviously we know that Los Angeles is on fire these days. It's sad and tragic because a lot of people are losing their homes and some are even losing their lives. I know that 2 or 3 days ago, they're still going. I don't think anything was quite as bad as it was 2 or 3 days ago. And I just my whole Facebook feed, for those that still use Facebook, was just literally all the friends that we know from Gallifrey One marking themselves as safe or giving updates and being evacuated. And it's like, oh my God, this is horrific. So, all our hearts go out to them. It's such an awful, awful, terrifying time for them in LA. So So I don't know. Stay safe as best you can. I mean, in this part of the world, Jasper, the hipster, the George Harrison of mountain parks, the one that everyone really likes, as opposed to Banff.
Banff's the rich uncle of mountain parks.
Yeah, had a horrific fire as well, and lost about 30% of the town this past summer, and that was tragedy as well. So wildfires destroying our homes is a thing we get to endure in this time of climate change.
BC, I remember one year it was the pandemic and it was hot as hell, and there were wildfires coming from the north of BC, and so Vancouver was kind of a hellscape at that point. I was well, this is terrible.
Yeah. LA, of course, is where Gallifrey One happens, so that's it's people live there for their lives, obviously, and we visit there a week out of the year, but because of that and because of all the people we know there, we have kind of a special connection to it, I guess. And so seeing all of the people we know going through such troubling times is sad and unfortunate. So hope everyone's sticking together and getting through this as best they can. Just to big up the Canadian aspect of this, I do notice that Canadian airplanes are dropping water on
BC and Quebec, I think.
Quebec,
Newfoundland as well. No, it's Quebec, and they service Newfoundland. That's what it is.
Okay,
Doug Ford said Ontario is getting ready to do the same, I think, too.
Yeah, they were down like lickety split. So given that there's an insane leaf blower in a diaper there threatening to invade Canada or something like this on day one of his presidency, we might get a little more Canadian up in here, just to sort of we will. It's Naheed Nenshi being on the show today in a little bit, but yeah, we're dropping water bombs and trying to put out fires. Damn it, that's what also, real neighbors do.
Just to be fair, speaking of the other neighbor, I saw, and this might be something that was misinformation, or I don't really care at this point, but somebody was like, here's a bunch of Mexican firefighters coming to LA to support and I'm like, yeah, because despite all the nonsense these guys have to put up with, they're there to help.
Damn right they are. Anyway, we'll be in LA. Hopefully everything will be better. But I mean, the LAX Marriott is nowhere near where these fires are happening. But still, it's it's a bad time for LA right now. Let's put it that way. And but anyway, Gallifrey One is not a bad time. It's happening next week, of course. Next month. In 5 weeks' time, they before all the fires started, they posted an update on when merchandise pre-sales close, which is January 15th. Tickets, of course, still available. Some programming updates and date changes for 2026 and 2027. We'll say this because it was mentioned in here that indeed, as we have done so since 2012 on the main stage, which is alarming to think about that, the Radio Free Skaro live show will happen at 11 a.m. Amazingly, through sheer coincidence, people who have probably done all the math and stuff like this leading up to this, like I did several months ago and couldn't believe it. Our stage show at Gallifrey One, we're not announcing the guests yet, will be episode 1000 of this podcast. Can you believe that? We didn't even rig that at all. We didn't rig that at all. Just happened to be that way. So
those are just the ones with the numbers.
Yeah,
I was waiting, and you delivered, Chris.
I knew you would. I knew, honestly, because Fluid Links and all these other things. Because we've sort of leaned into celebrating cutaways. Yeah, we've leaned into celebrating years more than we had, not celebrating, marking, commemorating years than episodes.
Facts.
Yeah, but when an episode number milestone happens and you're on stage at the same time, we kind of have to.
Yeah, just don't look too hard. Who cares?
Yeah, exactly.
It's fine.
Yeah, I think according to Libsyn, our podcast host provider, I think we're up to 1,240 odd things posted over the years. So it's, episode 1000 technically was long in the past, but we've got more bonus episodes than a lot of podcasts have episodes. Let's put it that way.
True.
Yeah.
That's not a brag. That's just, if anything, it's
statement
a
of
shame.
Fact. Yeah.
Statement of fact. Anyway, 11 a.m. on the Friday at on our with panels. We're not even the first panel of the day, but we are sort of the official opening of the event. You know how the Olympics kind of have we have the first heat of a bicycle race 2 days before the opening series. That's kind of what we're doing there. Anyway, Chris, you were saying.
I was going to say that there's some other stuff to talk about, like the the TARDIS Talks thing. Is it Paul and Joy both doing it this year?
Yeah, Paul Booth and Joy Piedmont. Yeah.
Okay. That's usually on the Saturday. It's going to be on the Friday afternoon this year.
Yes.
Sign-ups for Coffee Clutches Saturday, February 1st. That's always a very busy time.
Oh, it is.
And yeah, and then there's still more guests to be announced somehow.
Somehow,
it's quite a list already.
Yeah, there'll be some like local ones.
It's a big list.
Showmasters ones we'll put in there. Yeah, it's a jam-packed schedule this year.
I've forgotten a few that, like when I saw Catherine Tate, I'm like, oh yeah, Catherine Tate.
I know. Yeah, Catherine Tate's gonna be
there. And that's kind of a big deal. I mean,
it's a wee bit of a big deal. Yeah. It's giant. Pretty cool.
Do you want to talk about the upcoming, the next 2 years and their...
Yeah, at the very least, because L.A., Los Angeles being a major city, likes to host things, and sometimes those things coincide with Gallifrey One, and when they usually host things. And so in 2026...
It's not always a Herbalife convention.
No, remember those days? Remember the days when Galley would not claim the whole Marriott?
Nothing. You know exactly where I'm going with this. Nothing will touch the time that a sorority had a party next to Gallifrey.
It was amazing.
The greatest social experiment I've ever seen in my life. It was glorious to witness.
It was wonderful. That was years ago. They've since claimed the entire bottom floor, of course, for the convention. But in 2026, LA is hosting the NBA All-Star Game at the Intuit Dome, which I think is the new one that the Clippers play out of. And the Super Bowl, there's going to be a Super Bowl. They still have those at SoFi Stadium. That's a big football stadium in 2027. And then there's the Olympics in 2028. That's in the summer. We don't have to worry about that. But the first two will be happening over the same weekends that Gallifrey One would be happening, which means all the hotels in all the areas will be booked for that nonsense. So Gallifrey One 2026 will be February 6th to 8th. That's what, like a week, 2 weeks prior? 1 week prior.
1 week earlier than usual.
1 week earlier than usual. And then 2027, they're currently working on their contract that includes the 2027. So they won't have a specific date for that year yet, but until they know when the Super Bowl. But Super Bowl is usually first weekend of February, maybe even second. You never know. I think they might even be expanding to 18 games or something like that. So the Super Bowl might be pushed forward even. So that'll be affected. So yeah, if you're planning ahead, if you can't make this Gallifrey One, understandable. But if you're planning ahead and saying maybe 2026 is the year to go, then it's a week earlier than usual. So
I heard those stadium names and I thought, will those be the same names in 2026, 2027? Yeah, I have my doubts.
I don't know.
It'll be some other fly-by-night company that owns them.
Like historic crypto.com
arena still,
still a thing.
Exactly. The Truth Social Arena or whatever. Like,
yeah.
just cut through the nonsense. Call it Ponzi Scheme Arena.
Yeah, exactly. Right. The Pyramid Arena.
The Scamtorium.
Mm-hmm. Enron's back. You see that? Enron's back.
Is it?
Apparently it's back. I saw the headline. Oh, Enron's returned. I have apparently they're in POG form. I'm not too sure, but anyway, all the details of all that's been announced and talked about for Gallifrey One this upcoming year is in the show notes or at gallifrey1.com. As we say, some tickets are still available, so do come out. And like the guest list is alarmingly good. Alarmingly good. And it's the best time ever. And we're really looking forward to it because we're both bracing for the dread of January 20th and also looking forward to seeing a lot of our friends to commiserate with and celebrate.
That was what tipped me over the edge. I was like, well, I'm not going to let this redacted of a redacted tell me what to do.
Mm-hmm. That's what we're going to do. Hey, let's talk about some stats, just because.
Oh boy,
I know. Chris is happy about this. I'll let him get into the details if you want. The Barb released the weekly top 50 shows for the week of Christmas, which of course is when the most recent Doctor Who episode aired, and Doctor Who finished 6th for the week. Well behind the top two, which is Gavin and Stacey and Wallace and Gromit, Vengeance Most F, according to Barb, it's foul. And then Call the Midwife, Outnumbered, I don't know when you know what that is, and then another Call the Midwife, and then Doctor Who, a sitcom. So, Chris, you want to dive into these numbers at all that you found so interesting? Or
Well, what was the overnight?
4.11 was the overnight off the top of my head.
Got basically almost 2 million on the +7.
Mm-hmm.
So that's good.
Yep.
Just looking at the list here, like the top, because there was talk in the past about how ITV was just phoning it in for Christmas Day, and BBC had this like powerhouse lineup and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And for the top 15 shows that week, the first 14 were all BBC One.
Youch.
So that was quite a trouncing on the ratings front. But yeah, some of these numbers though, like Gavin and Stacey got 19.1 million.
That's astounding for this
That's
time.
Amazing
this
for this
day
time.
and age.
This day and age. 16.3 million for Wallace and Gromit.
Yeah.
Like wow. And then
I've heard that's great. I haven't seen it yet.
I've never seen any of them, so
they're well worth watching. They're fun.
yeah. Okay.
the next one down is called The Midwife at less than half the numbers of Wallace and Gromit.
Yeah.
It's like everyone watched these two things, and that was about it.
It was later in the
week's
day.
Viewing.
Yeah, it was later in the day too. I think did Wallace and Gromit immediately follow Doctor Who? Or was it called The Midwife? I can't remember how. I know it's Wallace and Gromit immediately.
This was later on.
Doctor Who aired, and then it was Wallace and Gromit immediately after Doctor Who.
Are on here actually.
Yeah.
So
yeah, exactly.
You're also
not
entering
the same day
snifter Brandy territory, so people are like, "I'm not changing the channel."
Yeah, that could
I'm
be
on my
too.
lazy boy. I'm sleepy. What the hell
I
is
know. Yeah. Also, I mean, there's another chart out there which isn't here. I can't remember where I saw it, if it's official or not. But like the share that Doctor Who got was, I think, like close to 40%. So even in that regard, like 40% of people who are watching TV at the time of Doctor Who are still watching Doctor Who, and there was 4 million people watching. You know, that's the state. This is something we've been trying to hammer home because all the British tabloids or disgraced missing episode discoverers have been going, "Oh, Doctor Who's ratings are terrible." Well, listen, nobody watches TV anymore unless it's a one-off event like the Gavin and Stacey finale, and that's
or the Super Bowl,
or the Super Bowl, or some sporting event, or the death of a
or Dancing
region.
with the Stars.
Yeah,
like that.
you know, so
we don't have a choice in it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think more of like every time I get a Google alert and I see some link to some I don't know, it's a reactionary YouTuber, but
right.
People who deal in
Bad faith arguments.
Yeah, sure, let's go with that. Just
right.
like shock things in all caps, episode titles and things like that, and just the ratings are Doctor Who dead in the water and blah blah blah. I was like, okay, well, 6th for the week, 40% share. What more do you want?
I know.
Like, there were doubtless times in like the when there were 3 channels and Doctor Who getting 40% did not happen.
No,
that's giving these guys the benefit of the doubt. They're unpleasable grifters, so don't worry about it.
Yeah, I mean that's just it. Because they don't care about representing the other side of the argument.
They don't, because it's not what gets the clicks, and Doctor Who still gets the clicks, and
that's just it. It's clickbait.
Yeah. Doctor Who as clickbait, basically. Yeah. So there's our stats. They're more or less meaningless because only people who are just had the TV on during Christmas Day watched it, and
like I said, it's brandy time.
Yeah, and the average age of the BBC viewer is like over 70 years old, so. There's that
BBC
too.
One viewer.
BBC One viewer. This is like all TV. See, and here in the States, geez, here in North America, in the States, like CBS, it's like literally in the 80s, I think. Like literally the average age of people who watch like some of the traditional networks are in their 80s. The average age.
Unchallenging pablum.
Yeah, broadcast TV. It's it's becoming a thing of the past. If it hasn't already, which is weird. So it always just feels weird to me that Doctor Who is sort of included in all of this. It just feels like it feels like it's increasingly out of place in the way that TV has been. But tradition states that Doctor Who has to be out on BBC One on a Saturday night, and so we have to just keep doing it. And it just feels strange to me now to be doing that.
I have a weird twisted pride in the fact that I've have formal training in not one, but two nearly dead industries. Broadcasting and journalism.
I know. Well done, Warren. You
made some great life choices there, didn't I?
Yeah. You should learn how to program AI things.
Yes, I should learn to code, as every
something
socially challenged idiot with a beard has told me.
Yeah.
Learn to program in Pascal or COBOL.
Ooh, COBOL. I'm a Fortran man myself.
That's how it talks to other computers.
Just looking at this list on the Barb website.
Right.
There's everything on here is like BBC One, Channel 4, ITV, whatever, except for one entry at number 20, which is Series 2, Episode 1 of Squid Game on Netflix.
It's
the only thing on Netflix to hit this list.
That's astounding. What do you think about it?
And that apparently hasn't done as well as the first one. Like, they're disappointed with the result or something.
Oh, well, that's usually what happens.
I've never watched either of them.
I know it got like some like enormously high number of eyeballs or minutes or whatever, however they do the
2 minutes.
These days.
If you're 2 minutes in, that counts as a view, apparently. Literally, that's what the stats say.
Speaking of grifters, here's Netflix.
Here's Netflix. Oh, you watched for 2 minutes? Oh, it looks like you watched the whole thing.
Good enough.
Yep. We'll count that. They don't need to know. Streaming. Speaking
of which.
Yeah. Speaking of which, oh yes, that's right. Warren's doing a segue, everyone. Was not surprised for that. Classic Doctor Who has been removed from BritBox UK and ITVX Premium. That's not a surprise because it's on iPlayer. I feel like the rights just expired, and basically, is how
especially with the BBC 100% owning BritBox now. I mean, it kind of makes sense to consolidate everything in one place.
Yeah.
Also, I don't even have BritBox anymore because I've got all the Doctor Who's in a certain hard drive. But anyway, also beyond that, I just looked at BritBox and said, this is mostly cozy murder mysteries. That's clearly what people want out of this. So why bother? I don't care about this, but it's there for a reason. And that reason is most people like this stuff.
BritBox has become what KSPS is still. I guess still give money to KSPS in hindsight because of all the Doctor. Yes. And because BritBox was the first streamer to bring classic Doctor Who to North America, I still give them. I haven't watched it in a while either, and it's like, no, I'll give you money, whatever.
I pay for Gem out of twisted patriotism, so but
that's true.
I also give KSPS money, and I can't watch them. I guess I could now, but I can't. But I can't generally watch them
for
3 magical weeks. You might be able to on
you can watch some of their on-demand stuff, which is their locally produced, which is fine. I don't really what's going on in the Inland Empire doesn't really interest you all that much.
That's true.
This is the station that got me into Doctor Who, and they deserve my money for the rest of my life.
100%. And BritBox, BritBox helped bring it. Honestly, it's because of BritBox, because if you look at all the Pluto TV and the Tubi stations that have the classic Doctor Who, they're all BritBox branded stations.
That's right, actually, yeah.
It's brought to you by BritBox.
So I wonder if that'll change now.
No, because it's outside of the UK, so I think that's the deal. It's the world stuff where it's and honestly, as time goes on, as long as you can put up with commercials, there's classic Doctor Who channels on Tubi and Pluto TV amongst Samsung TV internal. They are out there. And
it is so cool to just turn that on in the background and just have Doctor Who happening. Or you can do a Star Trek. I turn on old Star Trek sometimes too for the same reason.
Yeah.
And I have all those in a hard drive too. So
yeah. Sometimes the randomness. So if you are, obviously if you're listening to us natter on for as long as we have, both in this episode and the years that we've been doing this podcast, you probably already watched Doctor Who. But if if you have someone who's going, I've never really been, I don't know where to find classic Doctor Who, just go there. Just watch
fire
them
up old classic.
Watch any one
order. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, watch them in random because that's more or less what we got. That's how we started way back when in the 1980s, essentially.
There's no very few, unless you're watching Key to Time, overreaching arcs to get confused by. So
exactly. And even as a kid, I watched Key to Time all out of order too, and I picked up on it.
I mean, there's a Key to Time. That's about the only thing that's in there, and then I guess the Armageddon Factor comes last, but that's about it.
Yeah. And
then if you happen to be in the UK, then obviously iPlayer, and then also on YouTube, they're starting to load up a bunch of complete stories on the classic Doctor Who.
That's true. Not here in this country. I'll tell you that much right now.
I don't know what countries it's actually available in, so it's not available here.
No, because all the kids are going to YouTube now these days. You understand? So, to watch.
Well, on YouTube, Netflix, maybe one or two others. Like every smart TV you buy, every smart media, like every streaming set-top box, whatever, will have all those. Like a few stalwarts pre-installed and ready to go. And there's lots of people who never go beyond the just the stock stuff on there.
No.
Yeah, like when I was
Roku box or whatever.
Roku is what I was going to say. When I would be traveling and I'd stay in an Airbnb, I'd immediately fire up the Roku box and look for the classic Doctor Who channel. And my sister has a Roku TV, so I tortured her by making sure that I put on Doctor Who in the background, just to make her life miserable, as one does.
Just to bring it back. You remember these days? You remember when there was Doctor Who on all the time?
She's by osmosis watched a bunch of Doctor Who, whether she liked it or not, when we were kids. So she'll see the odd one, go, oh, I like this one.
Yeah, I dare say we've tortured our families a lot over the years by just random Doctor Who at the same time. I am now, as we speak, I will be firing up Tubi to see what Doctor Who is on. It should be in my favorites. It's not, probably because I haven't signed in or anything like that. But classic Doctor Who, I will tell you this very second, it is the tail end of the 3 Doctors. I'm watching Dr. Tyler go through the plume of singularity, and that is followed by something else, and it doesn't even say it. I love it. It's another Doctor Who. So that's what's playing out on my TV right now. It's great. All right, let's hey, this is something we've forgotten to correct a couple weeks now, but the first, you remember that Dalek 1/2 scale, half scale kit, that model kit that we went on about, and then we're flabbergasted by thinking that they only sent out an issue a month, and it would take you 13 years to build a Dalek. Many people jumped in and corrected us to say that it's actually it's weekly, so you get an issue every week. So it will only take you 3 years to finish this Dalek, as opposed
first
to
the Magna Carta controversy, and now this. Do we even deserve an episode 1000?
Good point, Warren. That's a very good point. This has probably been the worst mistake we've ever made. But anyway. The first one went out.
Don't look into that, people. Please do not look into that.
No, please don't. Anyway, so yeah, I still want to see like the end. Like they should say, you should be able to complete your Dalek by such and such date in such and such a decade. But it hasn't happened yet. So until I see an end date for these, I'm still skeptical that you can actually have the time and resources to build a Dalek of 1/2 scale. Just saying. But if you want to, links in the show notes. First one went out. And do you miss them? If you missed the first one, is it? Oh, too bad. I guess you don't get to make the whole Dalek. I don't know. I have no idea how this works. I'll just buy it.
It's like being a Babylon 5 fan in the 90s. Oh, I missed that episode. Well, too bad. Can I borrow your VHS tape? No.
Yeah. Depending on what pieces come with what thing and whatever.
Right.
I got to think that something like this would take up a lot more shelf space in the store. So that's like, they might not order so many, might make it harder to get them, or if they sell out, they can't get any more or won't get any more, or so. I suppose it's it's like buying the encyclopedia at Safeway every month or whatever when a new thing would come out, and if you missed, I don't know, whatever, M to N, then that's a lot of stuff.
Right.
And you'll never, ever get it again. You'll never know about, like,
you'll never know.
I don't know, the new deal.
Right. The new deal, like your Charlie Brown encyclopedia or something like that. Yeah. Sorry, now I in searching for Doctor Who on Pluto TV. I have been distracted because I flipped on Pluto, and for some reason, I don't know why, it landed on the Three's Company channel, and so Terry, Janet, and Jack are trying to disguise the fact that they're hiding kittens in their apartment, and I remember this episode, and I haven't seen it in 40 years, so it's
what is wrong with us? Age. That's what it is.
Age, man, age. They don't make TV shows like Three's Company anymore. I'll tell you that much right now.
Thank goodness.
Pluto TV, as of this very recording, is Logopolis Part 1. So there you go. Nice. It's random. Watch whatever. It's great. Love it. And Macadelic in 3.5 years or less. Links on the show notes. A couple of interesting hardcover adaptations coming. Haven't officially been announced, so we're going to spoil them here from BBC Books and Amazon.co.uk. But in October anyway, sees the release of novelizations of The Chimes of Midnight and Jubilee, nice. Both, of course, written by Robert Sherman. How about that?
I'm a fan of him getting work.
He's doing fine. I
know he is. I'm just a fan of getting even more work.
Yeah.
He's been doing that, chancellorship at some university.
That's right, yeah. He's Lord Chancellor, I believe. I'm just making that title up, but it's kind of fun.
Please tell me his office has a bunch of gears on the wall at the end. You have to play a harp to open a door.
Yes, it does.
Mix my Gallifrey episodes.
It's made in lead. The walls, the floor, the door,
if
everywhere.
If he started wearing like black lipstick and nail polish, then he could be Chancellor Goth.
That's true.
Sweet.
Bam, 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 bam.
Speaking of which, I saw Nosferatu on Thursday, and as I was leaving, there were a whole bunch of kids in gothy vampire outfits. I'm like, Goth lives. That's kind of it's not for me, but I'm encouraged to see it.
Oh, well, that's great. I guess I don't know. I don't.
You don't see goths around much anymore, but these kids dressed up for the occasion.
I don't see anyone around much anymore, Warren. So
wow, this got suitably melancholy, I guess.
Yeah, a little bit. It's like, I guess so. I see people at hockey rinks, and then that's it. So I guess sure.
Well,
goths.
We need some goths at hockey rinks, is what you're trying to tell me here.
Yes, so yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Chancellor Goth. Anyway, 2 novelizations. Robert Sherman. Act surprised when they're officially announced, but they're coming. So that's pretty cool. I think, isn't it?
I think so. I mean, those are my starting point for Big Finish way back in the day.
Way back when you listened to Big Finish back in the day.
Well, I listened to Chimes and Jubilee specifically, but yeah.
I buy more than I listen, but I do listen on occasion.
Yeah. Not a big audio drama listener because I'm a podcast editor. My ears have only so much to listen to throughout the course of the day.
True.
You know? And I'm not good at reading or following along on stories. Anyway, what were we talking about? See, I've completely forgotten it. So
talking about communists.
Communists, perfect. We are actually talking about communists in the form of Malcolm Hulke. Malcolm Hulke, Things Are Not Always What They Seem. The Writings on Politics of Malcolm Hulke is a book by Michael Herbert. It's coming out later this year from Tell Us Publishing. If you're a Patreon to Toby Haydock's Happy Times and Places, he's currently going through the War Games at the suggestion of Michael Herbert. So he's been top of mind recently. And of course, the season 7 box that's coming out, and I think he has a part to play in the Looking for Malcolm documentary that's on there too. But all that knowledge is being poured into this book from Tell Us Publishing, coming out later in the year. That should be very... Maybe it'll coincide with the season 7 box set coming out. Who knows? But there it is. Links to the show notes so you can read about it for yourself.
Learn about communism. The inevitable pendulum swing back from where we are now will be communism. So you better learn about it Malcolm Hulke style.
That's true. The classic communist. One last thing, as just recording, this news broke. Barbara Clegg has passed away at the age of 98. Barbara Clegg, the first woman to ever write for Doctor Who. Not the first to be credited. Leslie Dunlop was credited for the arc along with Paul Erickson, but it was just a credit, not actually writing. But Barbara Clegg wrote Enlightenment in 1983, was the first woman to write for Doctor Who. The second was Rona Munro. The third was not Rona Munro. It was like...
Helen Raynor?
Helen Raynor was, back in 2006. Anyway, I love Enlightenment. I think it's great.
I agree.
And I don't know anything else of Barbara Clegg's work, but I know Enlightenment was superb, and so it's sad when we lose Doctor Who writers. But 98, that's a hell of an age. So. So hat tip to Barbara Clegg.
So work on Doctor Who. It keeps you spry, apparently, from everything I've seen.
I guess so. I mean, we've lost a lot of people recently, and close to 100 or over 100. So, so yeah. So get used to this podcast for the next 50 years is what we're saying.
We'll forget everything, which we already do, but we'll forget more so what we're talking about. And we'll talk about how great it was 100 years ago. No one at all will relate to it.
No one at all.
We'll just end up being 3 Davrosses.
Yeah, but oddly enough, by that time, we'll be trading around a cassette tape because the internet will be gone, and we'll have realized it's a bad idea. And
don't tempt me with a good time, man.
Exactly. I will tempt you with a good time, though, Warren, and that is our chat with Alberta NDP leader Naheed Nenshi. It's a blast. It's after the break. Please enjoy. We have a unique guest on today's podcast. He is the leader of the NDP in Alberta, the official opposition here in our home province of Alberta. Sometime this year, he will run in the by-election for Edmonton Strathcona, the same riding that was home to Warp One Comics, which was a Doctor Who hub for the three of us in the 1980s. For three successive terms, he served as mayor of the city of Calgary, but we won't hold that against him. But it was in his role as mayor that he performed arguably his most important duty, serving as Grand Marshal of the Calgary Expo Parade of Wonders while dressed up as the 11th Doctor. Please welcome Canadian political icon and lifelong Doctor Who fan, Naheed Nenshi. Hello, Naheed.
Well, hello. I am so excited to be on the world's foremost Doctor Who podcast, which I just learned this is just before we hit record.
Yep. Feel free to campaign on that if you want. If you need the extra votes or something like that, we're here for you too.
We all have life goals, and I just achieved one. So
for the first Doctor Who podcast you're on is the world's foremost. So, I mean, first question. Well, how did you, because we've known you've been a Doctor Who fan for years now. When did your love of this silly little show start for you?
So when I was a kid, when I was in junior high school, the local Spokane, Washington PBS affiliate would carry Doctor Who shows on Saturday nights.
You bet.
And I went to a particularly nerdy junior high school where this was a thing. And it was a thing. People had scarves and fedoras and fake sonic screwdrivers. Now, the funny thing about this, and I've never actually gone back as an adult and figured this out, but I feel like KSPS, bless their hearts, in Spokane, Washington, only had a certain number of episodes.
Yep.
And every year or so, you would just start again. And so it was a bit of John Pertwee, all of Tom Baker, I think all of Peter Davison, and then you started again.
Yeah.
And so in those days, imagine, ladies and gents, kids, pre-internet, occasionally one of my friends would get a Doctor Who magazine, from the UK somehow, where we'd learn that we were years behind. And spoiler, it's only a 40-year-old spoiler. Adric gets killed.
Oh, no.
And so that was kind of the cycle. So to this day, I've barely seen any of the Colin Baker episodes or any of the Sylvester McCoy episodes because they never showed them on PBS, on KSPS.
Wow.
And so to this day, I keep thinking I'm going to go back. But it's much like my goal to go back and listen to all 1,000 of your guys' episodes. It's hard to go back, though I will tell you. So two sort of modern things about all of this.
All right.
Modern thing number one is a week ago as we are recording this, maybe 10 days ago as we are recording this, on what we call Boxing Day here in Canada.
Yep.
I met up with one of my adult friends and one of my junior high friends who brought the pizza while wearing a very long multicolored striped scarf that his sister had knit for him recently.
Oh, wow.
And we, three guys in our 50s, sat down and watched the Christmas special.
Oh, lovely.
Lovely.
But the other thing is that I recently got a new streaming box for my cable service. And just for fun, because I was looking, I had forgotten for some reason that it's on Disney Plus now. I had typed in search Doctor Who, and I found two interesting things. One is a streaming, a live TV service that has a classic Doctor Who channel. And so it's live. So it's whatever they happen to be playing. But they have more episodes than KSPS did. Every now and then I'll just tune in and it'll randomly be a second Doctor episode or an eighth Doctor episode, right? And so that's pretty cool. And then there are actually a small number, and I don't even know what the service is because it just goes through my box, but there's a small number of full series from every season of the classic show that are available. Not all of them, but there's going to be, 10 Tom Baker stories or 5 Sylvester McCoy stories. So I've actually gone back and watched some of those latter ones.
Nice.
Just so I can say I've seen some of the Colin Baker and Sylvester McCoy stuff.
Yeah, we've Pluto TV and Tubi have like these classic streaming things
too. Yeah.
And we were at a convention. Well, I was at a convention in Chicago in November, and in the background, what else do you do at a Doctor Who convention except throw it on? And the sheer randomness of them deciding on what episode you're going to watch just took us back to that time, because all three of us basically lived the same life story that you did in the early days. We are all KSPS people.
With one difference, my junior high was nothing like that. It was very hostile towards Doctor Who, and yet I soldiered on.
Yeah.
There may have been a robotics club where they may have built a scale model K9.
Oh my gosh. That's awesome.
Wow.
Also, Stephen and I have done a pilgrimage to KSPS a few years ago. So.
Have you really?
We have.
Yeah.
Do they know how much of their fandom and fundraising in the 1980s and 90s came from nerdy kids in Calgary watching Doctor Who?
Calgary and Edmonton especially,
yeah.
The program director came to Edmonton, and I was a teenager, and people asked Doctor Who questions. It wasn't me, thankfully, although I was probably about to, being a teenager. And he just said, "I have nightmares about Doctor Who." so even then, in this would probably be the late 80s, they knew exactly what the deal was.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
Once upon a time, 2011, we had Bill Stanley, program director from KSPS, on the show talking about the 80s and 90s and all that, and thank goodness his recall was quite excellent.
That is outstanding.
It was good. Were you ever a friend of Seven? for like us?
Just for Doctor Who. I didn't have much money as a kid,
right?
Just for Doctor Who, because sometimes they would have little giveaways, right? You get a tote bag.
Yeah.
I've got the tote bag.
I actually still give them money. I can't even watch it in Vancouver, but I still give them $10 a month, because why the hell not?
Yeah.
I love that. I remember once, did I mention I was a nerdy kid? Did I mention I'm a nerdy
it may have come up,
man now?
Yeah.
I also used to participate in sort of reach for the top style quiz competitions. I don't know if that means much to your listeners, like trivia competitions for teenagers, right? And I still remember, and I was pretty good at it, if I say so myself. And I just remember that there was one time where I was kind of clearing the board, and it was TV themes. I was probably 13, 14 years old. And, people are sweating going for it. And then, of course, the famous BBC Stereophonic Workshop theme comes on, and I just sat back and pressed my little button. And I remember to this day, it's just one of those life memories, right? That my mother, who was in the audience, just put her hand on her head because she knew that theme song and went, "Oh,
not this again." Oh man! So did you ever record episodes as well off the TV, or were you?
Yes, of course.
Okay, good. Okay,
of course. But I was not one of those keep them guys. I would record them and then record over them to watch the newest thing. Right?
Yeah.
Tapes are expensive.
They were.
Yeah, tapes were expensive. They were like $2 a piece then. And I do remember that. But I will tell you one other funny thing that just made me think of is my mother, now 83, is now my roommate, which is a great blessing in many, many ways. But during this last season, one day I was just watching a show on TV, and my mother happened to come by, and she was like, "So a black guy, huh? And is this show still going on?"
Oh man! You also read books though, as well, like all the Target novelizations, because you were a voracious reader.
They're called Target novels, right?
Yeah.
All those novelizations of the various episodes. So I famously was. Did I mention I was a nerdy kid? I feel like we're going in a certain direction here,
right?
But famously, I love public libraries. It's a very big deal for me, and I consider them, even in this age, to be among the last true community spaces where no one has to pay, where everyone is welcome, where we can do stuff. And I'm particularly proud of the fact that when I was mayor, we were able to build, the most magnificent public library in the world, in Calgary. And it's like the number one tourist attraction of Calgary now. You come for the Calgary Stampede, but you got to see the library. And I'm very, very, very proud of it. But famously, when I was a kid, I would spend my Saturday afternoons haunting the public library. And I would sign out these novelizations. And I was a fast reader, and they're not, shall we say, the most challenging of reading.
Right.
And so the story that I always told, even when I chose to run for mayor many, many, many years later, is I was such a voracious reader that the librarians gave me special dispensation to sign out more books than the normal maximum.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
And most of them were Doctor Who novelizations. So two funny things came out of that. Later, much, much later, decades later, in the middle of my term as mayor, the library did a fun advertising campaign,
right,
which was just what's in your book bag. And it was different people and different celebrities, and all you could see was their feet and their book bag. And there were books sticking out of the book bag. And of course, there was one of those Target novels sticking out of my book bag, which, along with my purple sneakers, allowed everyone to guess immediately who was this celebrity. They automatically knew. But the other funny thing is, I've told that story so many times. The librarians gave me special dispensation to sign out extra books. And I recently met a lady, and she said, I'm a retired librarian.
Mm-hmm.
I was the librarian at the Forest Lawn Public Library. And I said, oh my God, that was my library when I was a kid. She goes, I know. And I said, you remember me? And she goes, oh yeah. And I said, no, you don't. And she goes, no, I remember you very well. You're the one we told there was a weekly maximum and he had special dispensation, but there was no weekly maximum.
Would you have checked out even more Doctor Who books?
I probably would have.
Yeah.
I could go through those in a sitting pretty easily.
Yeah. Did you have a favorite Doctor growing up then, even though you were looping through the same 3 or 4 all the time? Did you actually land on a favorite?
Yeah, no, I got to say Tom Baker. I got to say it. I look back at some of that stuff now, and it's kind of held up. Some of it's a little cringe, as the kids say now.
Right.
But it really has kind of held up, though. When we saw him most recently, how long? That was some time ago now on the modern shows. To me, he was always the same age.
Mm-hmm.
And to see him, not quite the same age anymore,
right,
was kind of a shocking thing to me. And then I kind of went back and I went, because we were seeing the shows late, right?
Mm-hmm.
That, I was seeing them call it in the mid 80s, but these are shows from 7, 8 years before that, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That I'm like, he's actually not a young guy anymore. It's been a long time.
Right. He wasn't even that young then. He was like 40, I think, when he got the role.
Yeah. Which at the time was, ancient when he was 40.
Exactly, yeah.
Unspeakably old.
Like, it's crazy. Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm gathering, though, based on your KSPS viewing history, that at some point you might have faded away from the series or something as life changes. Or did you ever leave Doctor Who? Did Doctor Who ever leave you for a time?
Well, Doctor Who kind of left me for a while, because after a while I had seen all those episodes. And then, of course, after the show went on hiatus, is that 1989?
Yeah.
89? Yeah. After the show went on hiatus, I graduated high school in 89. And so you started to see fewer and fewer places to see it. And then I moved away and, we didn't have KSPS.
Mm-hmm.
And so it really did leave me for a long time. And I remember when the movie came out, I was sort of excited. I went, is this going to be an American show now?
Mm-hmm.
I have to admit, sorry, Paul McGann, I don't really remember anything about that movie.
I remember his name, so that's something.
I remember it wasn't great.
Right.
I don't remember who played the master.
Eric Roberts.
Oh, it was Eric Roberts. That's right.
Eric Roberts, yeah.
But in any case, I was excited for a minute. Then I watched the movie and went, they'll never get this again. But I got to tell you, 2005 comes along, and I haven't missed an episode.
Oh, nice.
Wow.
And I was so excited when it came back, and I sat down. I was a professor at the time. I was a political commentator, but I was like, Doctor Who's back. Set the PVR. Thank you, CBC.
Right? 10 days was in broadcast at the time. Like, that was unheard of, to have Doctor Who growing up on KSPS, having to wait years. And all of a sudden, 10 days after its UK airing, we get it. And there was like Christopher Eccleston, like introductions. And like, it just felt like CBC.
Hockey Night in Canada.
Yeah. CBC cared about Doctor Who, which was like all my worlds just coalesced there. I don't know how that was for you, though.
Yeah, it was pretty exciting for that reason, right? I remember that at that time there was a very funny site called Television Without Pity.
Yes.
That did reviews and recaps, but very funny reviews and recaps of TV shows, and I was kind of addicted to it. And they stopped covering Doctor Who because their audience, mostly in North America, was not waiting for the show to be broadcast.
Yeah.
So they said, what did we have before we had streaming? Like not Napster, but the TV version.
Yeah, more or less. Torrents.
Yeah. That's it.
Yeah.
And they were saying, if you need to know what BitTorrent is, ask a Doctor Who fan.
that's completely accurate.
We
won't go into details, but that's accurate.
Yeah.
They actually had to take it off their site because all the fans had seen the shows already and were spoiling them.
Oh, wow.
And so that is what Doctor Who fandom is about.
Was anyway.
Yeah. But were you a good, honest Canadian and waiting for proper broadcasts on CBC or Space later on? Or
I mean, look, there may have been times where there was a cliffhanger, and you just couldn't wait.
Right.
Hypothetically. Absolutely
hypothetically.
Mm-hmm. I just so at this time then, like, you were getting into politics at the time. Of course, you become mayor in 2011.
Surely, yeah.
Did this is a silly question in a way. Did Doctor Who did Doctor Who at all influence your rise as, through adulthood and saying maybe the aspects of Doctor Who could help me in a political life, or is that just nothing?
Or just your worldview generally?
Yeah.
Well, there are certainly worldview questions here, though. It's important, although you're on episode 999 or whatever, that you've probably gotten into all of this stuff. I will give you a warning, which is it's important not to think too deeply about the show's worldview.
That's probably true.
Because at some point you go, oh no.
Right.
Oh, he did what?
Yeah.
The genocide of a what? Oh no.
Yeah.
There are definitely some elements from the 60s that are regrettable to say.
A little bit.
No, I was watching on that Tubi. Sometimes if late at night I get home and I just need something to relax, I just put on whatever's on, right? Mm-hmm. And then I'm stuck because now, oh gosh, there's 6 episodes, right?
You catch it away. Yeah.
But there was a second Doctor episode I'd never seen where, just before the end, there's a mean alien just kind of, shall we say, killed in cold blood.
Right.
I was like, wait a minute.
That could be any number of episodes, actually.
Yeah.
It could be any number of episodes. And, but in any case, but the funny thing about it was that, I'm a very serious politician with very serious political things that I'm doing.
Yeah.
But there's this thing about me that is, did I mention I'm a little bit nerdy? But also, you always want things that people can identify with. And it wasn't so much that people could identify with the fact that I watch the same show as them, though there are a surprisingly large number of people who share that KSPS history or who are super excited about the modern series. Mm-hmm. I'll just quick bracket. One of my MLA colleagues, one of the people in my caucus, once he learned I liked Doctor Who, just started a group text with me and other caucus members on Doctor Who and related issues. And, I'm like, usually we talk about the crisis in public safety or healthcare. But he's never seen a classic episode.
Oh, wow.
Oh, really?
And my communications guy, who's a huge fan of the new show and particularly loved Jodie because he watched all the episodes with his daughter, who was surprised that Doctor Who could be a man afterwards.
Right.
He's never seen a classic episode. So there's a whole new sort of fan base. But closing that chapter, I would also say that people love when folks in political life have something that they like, that there's something that's quirky and fun and interesting about them. So that's been kind of really neat. And I know that our time is running short here, but I will highlight that when you introduced me, you mentioned something about the time when I was the Grand Marshal of the Calgary Comic Expo Parade.
Right.
I will point out to you that I was the Grand Marshal of the Comic Expo Parade every year.
Awesome. Wow.
And when I finished being mayor, I asked, could I just keep that role? And they said no. And the new mayor, who is really, really good at cosplay, had this amazing cosplay outfit for her first parade as the Grand Marshal. And there was a sudden, shocking blizzard that started 5 minutes before the parade. They had to cancel the parade.
I remember that.
In retrospect, they didn't have to cancel it because it stopped 10 minutes later. It was just some weird Doctor Who style weather events.
Right.
But I lorded it over the Comic Expo. saying, you guys get rid of me.
Right.
And look what happens. But the point being that she's really good at it. Makeup, outfits, everything.
Yeah.
When I dressed up, it was, shall we say, mild cosplay. I happened to be wearing a light colored sport coat, and a pair of jeans, which got jazzed up for me. There may have been a fez involved.
That's all right.
But it was pretty mild. But we had a lot of fun with it. And I wish I had brought along a little thing, which is, for the next year, someone said, give up on the cosplay, just be a fan.
Right.
And they made me a terrific t-shirt, which has what I think is the best Doctor Who logo, the one that looks like a TARDIS.
Right. Yeah.
I think the best logos are the ones where you go, obvious, right?
Right.
But it had an M instead of a D, and it said Mayor of Time and Space.
Nice.
Oh,
nice.
That is awesome. I will say, just so you know what kind of political party you're getting involved with now, is that David Shepherd is the MLA who you're naming and shaming there, starting the Doctor Who
I wasn't going to name it.
I was going to, because here's the thing. I found out he was a Doctor Who fan years ago when he tweeted about watching Rosa. And I got back to, we tweeted back and forth a couple times. This is in October of 2018. He sent out Christmas cards to various constituents, and he sends me one. And at the bottom it says, P.S., bow ties are cool. He remembered that conversation weeks ago and remembered to put it on there. So, and
he does wear bow ties.
He does wear bow ties too. That's very true. Well, listen, this has been fabulous, Naheed Nenshi. I hope we have been your safe space to geek out about Doctor Who. This might be the last fun podcast you get to do as we enter the political season here in 2025 in Alberta and the world. But we thank you very much for carving out some time for us today.
Well, thank you all. Now I've got my rest of my year sorted out, listening back from episode 1 to 999 here. And let's talk again. I'm excited about this new season and the direction we take after that Christmas special that I'm glad we didn't talk about, because I have opinions.
Oh, okay. Next on episode 1028, Naheed Nenshi gives his opinions on season 2 of Doctor Who. Looking forward to it.
And also, I refuse to call them season 1 and season 2, but that's just nice.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Take care.
That was a blast. I hope you enjoyed that. We are going to take him up on his offer to return to the podcast since he has opinions about Doctor Who, which will be quite. Will that coincide with the Edmonton Strathcona by-election sometime before June? Who can tell? But yeah, we've been delighted to have Naheed Nenshi on the show again to talk about Doctor Who. So
and before you ask, the one person who will ask, there will not be equal representation. we don't have to worry about the CRTC.
This is not a
paid political broadcast. Any UCP candidate loves Doctor Who.
No, exactly. It's funny, I remember trying to explain to friends the whole War Games HD footage back in like January. It's like trying to explain how that, and then being increasingly diminished in my status as my story went along, because like, how do I explain this to make it sound significant? Whereas I could say this now, by the way, Naheed Nenshi was on our podcast, and like a bunch of people go, what? How the hell is, in this area, in this part of the world, but like outside of Alberta and Canada, it's like
in BC, people would know.
BC would know. People in Ontario, I made sure to point that out to people in Canada that, oh my God, wow, this is quite something. Whereas, maybe people outside of the US didn't know. But let me tell you, it's a big deal. We're going to get a little more Canadian up in here. All right. This is how it's going to happen. We're starting with this. So Justin Trudeau, who's just recently announced his resignation, is a massive Star Wars fan. Maybe he's a Doctor Who fan too. We'll get him on, talk about Doctor Who. Who knows? Probably not. But
I think you'd have a better chance of him talking about Star Lost.
I would pay good money to see that.
Made in Canada. With a grant from his father. No, it wasn't. It wasn't at all.
And that's also, you're just pandering to me, Chris, at this point.
A little bit. We've already done our Star Lost episode.
That's true, too.
We've already done it.
Playing up the Canadian angle of Star Lost.
The Star Lost, yeah.
It's no Danger Bay. I'll tell you that right now.
No, Danger Bay.
No, but what is?
No.
What is?
Ocean Hellman. Is it Ocean Hellman? Is that her name who starred in Danger Bay? A Canadian kid show from the mid-'80s. I know Donnelly Rhodes is a legend.
Donnelly Rhodes, that's
he's in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, amongst many
I just remember there was
he was in Soap, damn it.
Yeah, he was in Soap, yeah.
History Museum in Gatineau. I went there with our friend of the show, Graham Burke.
Yeah.
And they had all these kids shows from Canada, and there was a lot of really cool stuff there. But I said out loud, "This is Danger Bay erasure," because there was no Danger Bay stuff, which made Graham laugh.
I think Ocean Hellman was the girl, the teenage girl who was in that. But I had to think about that because it just feels like I'm combining brand names of mayonnaise into a name, and
which were probably advertised during Danger Bay.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Ocean Hellman as Nicole Roberts.
There it is. I was right.
Oh my God, her full name.
I just remember.
Her full name is Crystal Ocean Supri Heavenly Blue Sky
Hellman. Oh, hippies.
That's some hippie parents.
Hippies. Yeah. Oh, love it.
I just remember at the time when it came out going, somewhere there's an otter in trouble. Call Danger Bay.
I think, new rule. We'll forget about this in a week. The last 5 minutes of every RFS, we talk about old Canadian TV shows. That's how it goes.
That's not even a rule. That's just a thing that happens.
I'm just trying to formalize it. That's all, because it's an inevitability. And we leave it to the end so that you people don't have to, you being you non-Canadians of a certain age, don't have to worry about us.
Get ready for more, because as we get more belligerent with every proclamation from down south.
Yeah, I learned and pointed this out to Warren that Adrian Arsenault, one of our nation's leading news broadcasters, her father directed episodes of King of Kensington.
Hell yeah.
Starring Al Waxman in the 1970s. So naturally, I had to find an episode of King of Kensington on YouTube on New Year's Eve and show that to Erica. So this is what you missed out on. We lasted about 3 minutes before I had to pause it and leave.
It's not a good sitcom, but the opening is great.
It's great.
It's walking around, I think, Kensington Market, which would make sense.
Yeah, Kensington. Kensington was Kensington in those days. We don't fake things here in Canada. We want to shoot in Halifax and send a story.
That would cost money.
It would, but we set in Halifax. We do it in Halifax. Damn it.
To go just a very small amount deeper into the rabbit hole before we wrap up this nonsense.
It's the end of the podcast. We don't feel as guilty as this. Anyway.
Fair enough. This Ocean Hellman person also did some guest stints in Canadian classic Neon Rider.
Oh my God. Starring Winston Reckhart. Wow, that is you thought I just knew Doctor Who actors. No. Here we go.
And that's the guy from Adderley, isn't it?
Oh my God, here we go. Here it is.
Which I remember watching that show and going, this is Canadian, without knowing anything about it, because all Canadian shows at the time had the exact same grade as 16mm films. And I'm like, that's got to be Canadian.
Yeah.
Or at least it looked like 16mm film.
It was 16mm. It had to have been 16mm. Oh.
Apparently, Record died in 2012.
That's very sad. We probably noted his passing on this podcast. Actually,
that's entirely possible.
Yeah. Anyway,
he did one episode of Littlest Hobo.
Everybody did an episode of Littlest Hobo.
Littlest Hobo was
true.
Yeah, it was the bill back in those. What's his name? The guy who played the skipper was episode 1.
Yes, he was. And DeForest Kelly.
Hale, was it?
Alan Hale.
Alan Hale,
yeah.
Junior
and Dr. McCoy himself as an indigent person who takes on the hobo who helps him out.
Didn't know that DeForest Kelly was in Littlest Hobo.
He was, yeah. They got a fair number of Americans too. As a paycheck. What the hell?
Man, you know what? When Doctor Who finally goes on another indefinite hiatus, I think we will be doing Littlest Hobo on this show.
Don't come on! Don't threaten me with a bad time. It's not a good show
until it comes back. Until Chris Chibnall returns as showrunner in 2029. We'll be doing Littlest Hobo at that point, but not until then, and not next week, because we'll be resuming our moon-based commentary next week, unless something dramatic happens or something like that. But leading up to, of course, episode 1000, which means episode 999 will be our Gallifrey One preview happening in the first week of February. So that's all coming up in the weeks to come. So until next time, I'm Stephen in Edmonton.
Warren in Edmonton.
And Chris in Edmonton.
So long for now.